Welcome to Instructions Unclear, where we talk about everything World of Warcraft. Today we will be talking about the Ion Hazzikostas and Wowhead interview. I'm Shrubhite, and this is Lotus. Okay, so some interesting things, I guess. I don't know, what are your overall thoughts on it? Warm the heart or make you a little worried, angry, upset?
So there's one thing that I read that I'm just like, uh-oh. And I think it might be something a lot of people are like, uh-oh about.
Yeah.
The question that worries me the most, and I'm sure we'll get to it, is would you change covenants more drastically between patches or raids? The answer is yes. And then he goes on. That's kind of scary for me because you work so hard on a covenant, and then what if it gets... But we'll get to that.
Okay. So I guess the quick one, the nice thing is, unlike the BFA to or Legion to BFA, there's no need to run a high key. Because they're just resetting everybody's like it should have been for BFA. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that?
What are we talking about here?
First week of BFA, your mythic keystone was related to your previous keystone from Legion. So there was people getting like plus 15s,
gotcha.
plus 20s, and
I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, I didn't know that actually.
Not a chance you're gonna complete it necessarily with starter gear, but you could definitely knock it down to something to give yourself a little bump.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't care one way or the other in all reality.
Right.
But I'd say it's probably a better thing so people don't feel the need to do it.
I'm excited to run up a key. Like I don't. Yeah. I wouldn't really see a point for me to, try to get a high key at the beginning.
I think some of the people that have been running them in beta and know the dungeons inside and out and whatnot, they'd probably have a better chance. But us going in and learning it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, and that's one of the things that I'm excited for is, that first 5-man that we get to, level 60, and we're all like, let's do this, run up the key as high as we can. I mean, we all know that we're going to get like 7, but
yeah,
that's fine. Whatever.
I'm excited for it. I like that aspect of it.
Great.
Balancing of covenants and legendaries. They basically said, they're it's going to be light unless we find something broken. If someone finds, that weird combination of items that just makes something insane. Yeah, they'll probably bring it down. But they don't plan on swinging them wildly from what I've read and heard.
Yeah,
is the goal, which you can see from like what I've seen in BFA beta, the posts and whatnot. There was some weeks the tuning passes were huge.
Oh yeah,
they just swing what everyone had considered the BIS legendaries. All of a sudden that was the worst thing you could think of grabbing.
Swing it the opposite direction
and then meet somewhere in the middle of the following week. So
right.
Which
they were doing that with like a lot of things though. It wasn't just legendaries. It was specs from top to bottom, and then covenants from top to bottom, and like it was like everything they were nerfing and bringing back up.
Yeah, no, which I think's a good way to do it instead of trying to fine tune it right out the gate. Of you go in and they set the numbers and go, okay, this in theory is gonna work, and then try to fine tune it. If you just go in and say, all right, we did this, what happens if we crank it this way? Okay, that was too much. Like,
yeah, let's go the polar opposite and see how it is.
Yeah,
we'll meet somewhere in the middle.
But good lord, has that led to a headache trying to
Yeah.
figure out your damn class because you're reading
Yep.
everyone's reviews and the info and all the numbers and everything, and you're like, okay, this week this is looking like a solid choice. And I'm not
Looking
even,
nice this week. Next week, though.
yeah, good lord. But like I said, I think it's a good way to do it. It just sucks that it's kind of last minute.
Yeah.
And I mean that one kind of segues into the next one. The would you change covenants more drastically? Which I know you're
That's a
worried about.
worry to me. Yeah, the worry to me is, and then I was reading it. It's not that exact post. It's later on in the interview. He's talking about how long it would take you to get caught back up if you were to switch covenants, and he said something like 3 or 4 days you could be in a
Viable.
viable place with your covenant again.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not that big of an issue, but from everything we've heard previous to now, like before,
Yeah.
like,
Well, so I think their comment specifically to this question, I think is good. That they'll change covenants. They'll admit, you know, when needed, they will make a change, but they're also saying they're going to try to, wait for patches for the big changes. And if they have to reset, cool. Like if they know they're going to fuck something up and, swing it wildly, they're going to look at, resetting the cooldown on changing covenants and stuff, which I think's the right way to handle it. If it's your point, 1, point 2, point 3 patches that big
right,
changes happen, I think that's fine.
right,
That's as good a time as any, right?
yeah,
Um, but we've known all along their goal with covenants. Originally, you were like locked to a covenant. It was like
right,
hell to switch because they didn't want what happened with Azerite gear happening in
with
raid.
covenant,
Yeah,
right,
they don't want you hearthing back and changing for one boss. They don't want you, tailoring your tune to one boss every other boss. Like they want you to pick something that works best in most of your scenarios for you and kind of stick with it. So the 2 or 3 days, most guilds, outside the mythic race, most guilds raid 2 or 3 days a week.
right,
So if you don't like something during raid, kind of sucks. You're stuck with it that week. But then once you've finished raiding, switch your covenant, spend the weekend farming some stuff up, and come next week you're viable again.
right,
It's not terrible. It's not obviously not what people want, because the end result is it's going to take you 2 or 3 weeks to get even, is what he said.
yeah.
But yeah, it's not terrible. I guess is kind of my thoughts on it. Could be better, but it could also be worse. So I think it's one of those
It sounded worse at the
reading it.
beginning.
Yeah.
Like, no, at the beginning of all this, like it
Oh
sounded.
yeah.
It was like, oh well, you pick that covenant, you're done. Like, yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
switch, but it's not going to be fun at all.
Yeah.
So
I've also
that's good.
said they've um I think they actually talk about it, but they basically lock you to that covenant for all things related. It's
Right,
kind of the flat no on people saying, I want to be this covenant, but I want this covenant's ability. That whole pull the ripcord thing, open it all up. They've more or less laid the hand that that's just never going to happen. They don't like it for lore reasons, which I personally I don't mind. I get
right.
it. Would it be cool to mix and match and just be the best you can be? Yeah. End of the day, is it really gonna, bork things up? I don't think so.
Right. So this next question, I agree with everything that they're doing with that, honestly.
The
Um,
consumables.
yeah, a lot of consumable class utility items were removed, like scrolls. Drums were nerfed. The design decision behind that. I mean, the game has always been about it's been a community based game. Like, I remember back in Burning Crusade, whenever we were going to do Magister's Terrace, it was like, okay, we want a rogue to sap one, we want a warlock so they can banish the succubus, we want, we took certain classes into heroic Magister's Terrace even because it was like it's going to make it a little bit easier. So bringing it back that, those classes are used for a buff even is going to make it feel better to have a priest in your group or have, a shaman for lust or a mage for time warp or whatever. Like, it's going to make it feel good again. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
When I think excuse me, oh crap, what was I going to say? What's that whole, the argument was bring the player, not the class, was the original decision behind all that. But then you realize, you end up with your 4 hunter stacked mythic pluses because they're just scrolling up to get all the buffs. So I think it's good. I think, especially for the pug community, I that when you get to and it's funny, the high end pug community is less toxic than like the middle end, the mid pug community. The 10 to 15 keys gets so toxic because everyone wants to play the meta for, plus 28s.
Right.
Whereas once you break past the 15, the people in that range seem to know it's, you can do those keys with any class.
Yeah. It's just the person playing the class.
Yeah. So I think it's a good call. I'm on board with it. I got no complaints there.
Yeah, I'm actually excited for that. Drums are nice, scrolls are great, but I think getting rid of them or nerfing them so that they're not as viable is going to be nice for sure.
Yep. Next one I thought was interesting. Revolving door type class balancing,
and it seems, I mean, it's kind of what they do.
It sounded like they basically said no. They're not gonna pick, okay, this tier is your tier, now it's your time to shine. Next tier you're getting nerfed. Like I think the fact that they're not trying to cycle everybody through the top is good. Right. That they're just gonna kind of let it play out, and like they say, brewmasters in the beginning of progression are almost always there because stagger, not getting one shot is a huge bonus. But then as people gear up and later on you see higher representation of other classes because they've got good utility. They don't that one shot mechanic can take them out, where in the beginning, whereas a little bit later on not necessarily the case. So I think overall, not chasing, because then you end up with your guild if everybody knows it's warlock's turn to be on top, right? Then your top 5 competitive people all want that warlock spot.
Yep.
So I think leaving
they don't want to be the best mage, they want to be the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
so
I feel like as far as tuning goes, it's always felt the same, like to a degree. Like you have like DK tanks, like I'm gonna talk from a tank perspective. They always do really well beginning of the X pack, and then they die off through the middle, and then at the end, they're you don't even really see them. And it's the same for like Brewmaster monks. Early progression, they do really well. Then they start to die off later, and then you start seeing the pallies, the warriors, the druids, things like that. And I can't say that they've deliberately done that. I just think that's how the classes scale with, like your first tier of rating, you're getting a lot of base stats. Your second tier of rating, you're getting a lot of second tier stats. So it's going to change the play. And I can't say it's their fault. It's just how it works.
I personally think that's a good thing. right?
Yeah, I do
Like
too.
it because if it's back to the, not, if they did it the other way, then they're picking who's good. If you
Right.
just design the class, certain things are going to be good at the beginning of expansion, and
Right.
certain things will do better later on as they scale
Well,
with secondary.
that's one of the reasons blood does so good at the beginning of the X pack, is because your healers aren't pumping out numbers like crazy, and blood is pretty much healing themselves, at least half of the time.
Yep.
So blood is gonna come out, the big boy tank in the early X pack because they're better to heal. I mean, they heal themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's I think that it's in a good spot. I'm glad that they're not really gonna change anything with it.
Yep.
Covenant swapping and renown. This is where I was talking about.
I'm glad they're introducing a catch-up mechanism out the gate.
I am too.
It's really funny because everyone's saying, not everyone, but a lot of what you're seeing is people talking about Shadowlands being alt friendly, off spec unfriendly.
Right.
So it'll, and you see it because a lot of it's gated, right?
Yeah.
So you're the Ash, the Renown, all that stuff's gated on how much you can gain a week with a catch-up mechanism in place.
Right.
So it's harder to grind out multi-spec, but easier to log in and go, okay, I did my 2 Torghast runs, I did my 3 Covenant dailies. Cool, I can let him sit, and you can creep your main up by doing other things, but that gap isn't, or the payoff isn't huge.
Right.
From what it seems like.
And
So
I'm okay with the whole alt friendly, not off spec friendly. Because whenever I play my tank, I don't want to carry 3 sets of gear to do something. Like on my monk right now, I have a Windwalker set and I have a Brewmaster set, and it's like I don't want to carry that stuff. So I would rather play another tune than.
what I think it's nice because, like, I'll have my healer main out the gate. We can run mythics and whatnot, but then I'll get a second tune up quick, and because
Yeah.
it's time gated, it's not going to be far off. I'll be able to hop on it. I'm leaning towards doing a tank DPS class for mythics and stuff. That way we can.
I mean, we all know how that goes. He ends up being a DPS. That's
You're not wrong.
This man was like, "Oh, dude, I'm leveling a demon hunter, so that I can tank Mythic Plus." Like 2 weeks later, I was like, "Dude, you want to tank this?" He was like, "Nah, dude, I'm straight DPS, bro."
I'm sorry, bouncing around my screen was more fun. Okay.
No, but if you're a demon hunter, you still bounce around on your screen.
No.
No. I ain't trying to hear that. I ain't trying to hear that.
But so yeah, I would tend to agree that I'm hoping carrying 2 classes isn't difficult. I don't expect them to be even, especially out the at some point once raids on farm and stuff. Things will level out and probably carry a couple tunes, or a few tunes. But I think 2 out the gate doesn't seem like it's going to be terrible to keep one of them, or the second one, relevant. Swapping covenants.
We kind of covered that. Yeah, it says right there, if you swapped covenants, you should, within a few days of gameplay, be at a point where you're viable.
Yeah.
Which that statement right there alone makes me not as worried about the first question. Because the first question was, could we have to change covenants at some point? The answer was kind of yeah. Like, we're gonna do changes to covenants if they need to be changed. So possible. Yep. But that, if you did change covenants, you've got a few days, you'll be viable to raid again, so, or dungeon or whatever.
And then the next one's basically your covenant stuff is tied to your covenant. So anything
Yeah.
you earn, you lose. The weapon one is interesting. They said they're not going to screw you, but they don't. He doesn't have the answer on how they're not going to screw you. So
Yeah.
I I read a couple of the comments after I went through it the first time, and there's a couple of people that were worried about those kind of comments of one of those like, yeah, but you know, it's coming out in a week. We should know the answer to this. Like,
Right.
there's a handful of things that could be absolutely game breaking that they might have overlooked like this. Because if that's the case, if you do your covenant stuff, you get your weapon, and then for whatever reason you need to switch, whether it's requested by your raid leader or you want to, and you make the swap, and then your weapon's useless, you can't use it.
Right.
Kind of SOL at that point. Like,
Right. You're just kind of. I have not read anything about this. So maybe you know the answer, but if you switch covenants, right? Like if you decide to switch covenants, can you switch back and still be back where you were?
yes,
Or partially where you were?
it's harder to go back to where you were.
Okay.
So I don't remember if you lose like the renown and stuff, but there's a quest chain to go back. That's
Okay.
a process for you to get back in the good grace. So you join your covenant, you start at the bottom. Covenant's basically reputation from what I've gathered.
Right.
You build your renown up, your reputation, you grow in the covenant, you get more stuff from them.
Right.
You leave, well, now you've abandoned them. You did a whole bunch of stuff, promised to help, you've abandoned them and gone to someone else. So now when you want to come back, you have to like get back into their good graces. And
Right.
I don't know what it does with your renown and stuff.
Gotcha. The no flight master whistle, that's a bummer, but if you read his answer, like as long as you upgrade your transportation network to 3, you're gonna get a portal, and it's gonna be, you can kind of work your way around the flight master whistle. Other than I know I've done it. I don't know if anybody else has done it. I'm sure everybody else has done it, but you go out and you're questing, and you're like, oh, I'm too far away from the flight path, so you just call your flight whistle. Pulls you back to the closest one, even though it's further than where it was, and you just fly there. I've done that.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not gonna be able to work around that, but you'll still be able to get around easily.
Yeah.
From the way it sounds. They've never made it like super easy to get around at the beginning of an X pack anyway.
It's the same with Pathfinder. I mean, they want you to run through the expansion, experience the content, see it. Is their time frame of how long it takes to experience the content a bit longer than people would like? Yes, but I can't say I'm surprised by this move.
Right.
Legendaries, catch up mechanisms for Soul Ash. No, but you'll be able to
sometime. Right?
Well, so it's initially they gate the Torcast. So you won't even be able to get unlock your legendary week 1 like we thought we would, because they're only doing level 3, and then they'll do 4 through 6 and then 7 through 8. So it's one of those like by the time you start an alt, you'll be able to run more content than you could originally. So it's a catch up mechanism, sort of. It won't take you as long to earn your legendary as it did originally, is what it seems like.
Right.
So I don't know. And then the fact that your legendary is equip limit of 1, if you could rock 3 or 4 legendaries, would there need to be a catch up mechanism? 100%. But everybody can only rock 1, so it's not like.
Do you think that this will turn into something like Legion, where it was 1, and then later in the X pack we get 2, and then I think we got up to 3 we could wear in Legion?
I 100%
may have been more.
I 100% expect that to happen.
Yeah,
I don't have
that's
proof
what I was
for that.
Too.
It's just what it seems like.
Yeah.
Like what's the point of getting your best item at the beginning of expansion?
Right.
If you're only limited to 1. Like sure, you can craft more and you can play this legendary is better for this fight and then yada yada. But I think ultimately it's gonna come down to, you'll you'll end up carrying 2, 3, 4 of them, if not a full set. I don't know. I mean, they're gonna have full
Oh man, you think
legendary
I don't
armor
know if they would
sets.
do a full legendary armor set. I don't
I
know.
don't
That would be
I don't think so, but it at the same time wouldn't surprise me because the full set's out there.
yeah.
Everybody, well, okay, not everybody, but those of us that like the look of it or whatever are gonna farm the full set anyways. So
For the transmog alone.
yeah,
Our legendary patterns 100% drop chance when you meet the requirements. Pretty much he says no, but it depends on what difficulty they are to get. So if it's like a raid and you can run it once a week, it'll be a little easier of a drop chance. If it's, a dungeon and you can repeat it over and over and over, it might take you 20 times running it.
yeah. I liked the answer to this. It seemed fair.
Yeah.
If it's a rare spawn, you're guaranteed to get it basically. Like if it's a once a week rare spawn cycle, you'll get it. But like you said, if it's a dungeon, it's going to take you multiple times. And then they said they're not as rare as Legion legendaries were in the beginning. So there's no need for the bad luck protection.
Yeah, fail safe. No fail safe as of right now.
So maybe we'll see how it goes, but I'm excited with those answers regarding that stuff. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no complaints on any of that for me either.
Conduits seem to make sense. It drops relevant item level. The stuff that randomly drops it for your relevant item level.
Right.
That was kind of what I expected. I'm glad that's the case, but I'm also not necessarily surprised. Like I wasn't expecting them to be dropping,
top tier.
Well, or bottom tier. The same. Like it's not like you're running high end content and then risking getting low end conduits. Like I don't see that happening. And because they got rid of War Forging and Titan Forging, you almost guarantee like people would be. Could you imagine the expansion after removing War Forging and Titan Forging? They put in a system that lets you get upgraded conduits randomly.
Yeah.
Like that would it's the same thing
why
over
did
again.
we take out the last one and now you're putting in a new one?
So yeah, no, I think that's
conduits dropping from the Great Vault. Answer's no. They drop as bonus loot, so really not even possible for them to drop.
Yeah.
Pretty easy answer, pretty understandable. Oh, rating. We're on to the rating part here. This is where I be able to get weapon tokens. Answer, I believe, was yes. Oh, but don't quote me.
Oh.
You should be able to get weapon tokens, but don't 100% quote me on that. Pretty sure you can. They're just loot. So yes, but don't get a bank on it, but yeah. You can totally get tokens.
I don't know if it was this one or later, but they talked about you're not going to get loot from bosses you haven't done. So if you only do...
Hold on. Not going to get loot. I got to think about that. Not going to get loot from...
In the Great Vault.
It's... Oh, okay. I got you.
So if you... Because the last 2 bosses, again, have higher item level loot.
Right.
So if you do the first 8, you're only going to get loot from those.
From those 8. Okay. Gotcha.
But once you do the last 2 bosses... you can get loot from it's just once. You just need to do them once, and then you have a chance of getting that loot in the Great Vault.
Right. Gotcha. So after you complete heroic, every week thereafter, even if you don't kill them again,
correct,
you'll still have a chance at their loot because you had previously killed them.
Yes, you've unlocked their loot. Is how I read it, under whatever you want to call it.
For all of the big mythic raiders out there, 3 pieces of loot from a mythic raid boss. I mean, I want us to get into mythic, but that's not really gonna affect us right off the gate. You know what I mean?
Like that sucks because it's down from 5.
Yeah.
Which again, that's gonna make it's back to the. It sounds like they're trying to make the mythic race harder.
Good.
I agree. I think they're I think that's cool, but
Yeah.
it obviously Mythic Raiders
Do
are
you
going to be salty about
remember?
that.
Do you remember when there were bosses that were alive for months
Oh
that
yeah,
didn't die?
oh yeah,
Like now on the outside edge, you're looking at a month and all the bosses are dead. You know what I mean? And that's outside edge.
yeah. I
You know,
haven't
these
seen
guys are like
one.
killing them 2-3 weeks.
Yeah,
You know, it's like you're lucky if you see a month.
yeah,
I don't even know if we've seen a month this whole X pack. Honestly, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks every one of
yeah.
them.
I think what of it was it Eye of Ishara, the like 3 boss one. They were
Yeah.
annoyed that that was so short because that was
No,
only
that
like
wasn't Eye of Ashara. That was Or wait,
because Eternal Palace was a normal like 10 boss raid.
Eternal Palace was the one I was thinking of.
I think Eye of Ishara was that like mid tier like 3
Yeah.
boss raid or something. Um, any plans to bring back guild loot, guild master loot, or
Guildmaster Loot.
master loot?
So me
I
and you had talked about this previously, and I can see both sides of the argument. They're not planning on it, but I can see both sides of the argument.
The problem is it gets abused more often than not, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see
And
that.
I think I think your top. I would probably say your top 100 CE guilds are probably very fair with Master Looter. Everybody's on the same page. You're going to give it to the people it's going to benefit the group the most, like the yada yada
Yep.
yada. Outside that, you probably end up in with more. You start getting into more sketchy situations of favoritism and giving it to the people they like more. And
Yeah.
then once you get outside the CE range, it just turns into a shit show
Yeah.
with favoritism and
No,
whatnot.
I can see that, but like, I'm not. I have never been top 100 cutting edge. Like we rated whenever heroics were just starting to come around. We rated heroic content. Wrath of the Lich King, shit like that. But we were fair with our loot, and it just sucks being one of those people that is fair with our loot and hands it. Like we would go through and be like, okay, our DPS is a little low to get this boss down. We're not going to pass this piece to a healer because our heals are fine. We're going to go ahead and throw it to one of our caster DPS.
Yeah,
Like that's
but
just what we did.
and I'm not trying to say that outside the top 100 or even outside CE is it's all unfair. I'm just saying
Right.
you end up with way more abuse than is
Than
necessary.
not.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. No,
I've
I
same as you. I've been with guilds that it was fine, that it was
yeah.
no issue, no qualms with. But I've also been with guilds that it was problematic with.
Right.
I think Loki and I were talking. He was in a guild. They used Master Looter DKP way back in the day, and they
Didn't they?
changed the rules on him
Ah,
to give the loot to someone they wanted to.
right.
Like while they had the loot open, looking at it, distributing it, they changed the rules on the fly. Just
Wow.
so it's one of those like shitty things like that. It can go fine and dandy for 6 months, and all of a sudden they can just screw over whoever they want.
Somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Armor stacking, funneling. I mean,
I like
that's a
that
thing in
answer.
WoW. It's a thing in WoW, and it's always going to be a thing in WoW.
Well,
Like, there's
it's their answer was great. The top tier players are always gonna do everything that they can to gain an edge, and if you
they are
remove the gear stacking, funneling, they're gonna level multiple alts and gear them
right.
up. So it's one of those it you take away one, you open another. Like at
Yeah.
that point, like it's just not. Again, it's
Well,
back to it affects such a small percentage that I don't see it. It's just not problematic.
So whenever I think about this question, I guess I think about it a little differently. Like armor stacking to give people, all the leather wearers a chance at stuff, or loot funneling or anything like that. Like whenever I'm talking about like high tier players or high end guilds, I'm not thinking about them on this aspect, and maybe I should, but I don't think about them on this aspect. What I think about whenever I think about armor stacking, loot funneling, is those guys that are posting in LFG or yeah,
Oh,
looking for group that are like 4 platewares, you know, come by or run, blah 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 blah. That's what I think about, and you're just not gonna get rid of it. Like
no.
it's always gonna be a thing. It doesn't matter if it's like this the way it is now, or if they do change it, they're gonna find a workaround or
Well,
some way to do it.
yeah, I've heard a fair bit about this in regards to the top guilds, because you get your method streams, your limit streams. They open their stream up to 2,000 people and go,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're running splits this week.
Yep.
If you're hero, if you're maleware, DM this guy. If you're a plateware, DM this guy. You need to be at this item level. Funnel all that you can. Yada yada yada." And
Right.
it's one of those like, are they using their status and ranking and stuff to gain an edge? Sure. So the fuck what? I I don't know. It doesn't.
I mean, it's just like any other sport to
Uh
me.
huh.
Like if they're willing to put in the time, the football players that practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. Yes, it's a physical thing, but they're still getting their body ready and their stamina built up, and like
Well, and
it's just the same with any other sport. They're willing to put in the time.
it's back to they're stacking, as they're trying to get as much heroic gear as they can before mythic.
Right.
Okay. So they're replacing that gear the moment something drops. So it's one of those like, yeah, does it give them an edge? Sure. Do some of those same guilds, spend tens of millions, hundreds of millions of gold to buy fucking BOE items? Yes. So what?
Oh,
It's back to they're gonna do whatever they can, and I don't see it as being. I agree with the comment. It's one of those like, yeah, do they gain an edge from it? Sure. Does it really matter? Not really.
right.
And
Anybody
for
that's in that tier of playing does the same thing, so
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
when it's the people, I also think it's cool for the people in the Twitch chats, in the the followers of them. They get to go help support their favorite person, their favorite
Content
guild,
creator or yeah.
whatever it is. So I think it's actually kind of cool in that way of knowing, hey, I gave this guy his weapon, they got this boss and he was top DPS. Like,
Right.
it's a neat thing.
Yeah. No, I can't complain about that. I've always felt like if you can put in the time to do it and you're looking for these guys make money to play video games, like
Yeah.
for large amounts of time. Like you're putting in the time, do your
Yep.
thing. Are tier sets still planned for later on the X pack? Yes. I mean, and that is
I'm so bummed they weren't at the beginning.
so I'm trying to think. There was another raid at some point that didn't have, was it Kata? The first tier in Kata, did it have tier sets and then they come out? No, I think Kata didn't have tier sets and then they came out later
Huh.
in the X pack. So this doesn't bother me because I've seen it before. It was one of the X packs. I've seen it before. I've seen this happen before.
Does it bother me? No. Am I sad? Yes.
Yeah, it would be cool to have tier sets back, like boom, right now. But
Yeah.
I mean, at least he even says that art development is already underway. Like, you're gonna get them. We're gonna get them, and they're gonna look amazing because they're gonna come out and they're gonna be like, "Look, we're bringing back tier sets. You guys can have these," and they're gonna be amazing. Well, I hope they're gonna be amazing.
I hope it's class, like class specific looks.
Oh, God, I hope so. So there was one tier set that I hated, and it was Trial the Crusader because all leather wearers looked the same, all mail wearers looked the same, all plate wearers looked the same, all cloth wearers looked the same. I hated that. I loved like ICC where they had like the druid had a set, the each one of them, freaking amazing.
I won't talk about the Trial of Crusader set. I fucking loved it.
No, Why? It was so bad. What
Oh,
were you playing? What were you playing?
Reptalian Rogue.
Okay, well, I was playing a shaman and it looked like trash.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
trash. My
I,
favorite shaman sets were like ICC. ICC's shaman set, amazing. Especially heroic.
yeah,
Looked so good.
I absolutely love the Paladin and Rogue Trial of Crusader sets.
This is what we get whenever we have an alliance player and a horde player.
Quality, not quality.
I don't know about that.
Have you seen your houses?
Um,
Mud huts.
they are not mud huts. They are
Okay,
beautiful.
sewer systems,
Oh my god. Okay, here we
TPs.
go again. Are there plans to nerf bolstering and necrotic in Shadowlands? No. They
I,
built
I
these dungeons around that.
I like the answer.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out, but I think it's good.
Pretty much, he says, we built the dungeons around the affixes that we know.
Yep,
And if you're ballsy enough to pull 3 or 4 pulls, you're
that's on
gonna
you.
have that. Yeah, you're gonna have that problem. Can you do it? Probably.
Figure it
Okay,
out.
yeah, but you're gonna have an issue. You probably should have French fried when you should have pizza. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. No, I like the answer. I
Yeah,
know they've tuned some of the stuff. They've changed some of the stuff. Like priest now can dispel what's that one? The bleed, grievous.
yeah.
Or is it grievous? Or is it bursting?
Grievous is the bleed.
No,
I think bursting is the
bursting.
one that you guys that
We can
priests
now
can dispel.
mass dispel, yeah.
Mass dispel. Yeah.
So yeah, like
Wait, is it? Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's the one. But so I think that they're making changes to make classes more viable for everything, so that some weeks, where previously you just wouldn't invite a priest because they couldn't do it. Now that's a non-issue. So I think changes like that are good. So I don't know. I'm excited for Mythic Plus.
Yeah, I am too. I've Mythic Plus is probably the thing I'm most excited for going into new X packs because I know that that's the first thing I'm going to see.
Yep.
So yes, raid. I'm super pumped for raid, but we're not going to see raid until we have enough people to raid. So Mythic Plus are definitely a big excitement for me. Next question segment was the Maw. Do you think the Maw is in a better state now? And why were some of the recent changes done to it? I mean, they've been changing the Maw for.
So I haven't followed much of the Maw.
I haven't either.
It's the place you'll go to do things weekly or
Right.
whatever. Sure. My understanding was originally it was super rough, no mounts, very spaced out. It was just rough. It
Right.
sounds like they've been addressing that. It sounds like they're making things better. They're listening to feedback. So great. But I have not, beyond that, I haven't kept up with it. So
Right.
there is 2 mounts that you can use in there that you have to obtain. So I think that's good. Gives you a
I mean, at least you're not walking everywhere constantly.
yeah.
Eventually you can get a couple mounts that will help you get around.
So the big lore question: will we see Nathanos return in Shadowlands? There is certainly a chance. He said what he said for a reason.
Meh, who knows?
I mean, I'm hoping for our Lord and Savior Nathanos to return.
Right. Because you're in love with. No.
Oh man, that got some people salty the other night. That was funny.
I know it did.
I think that I will say I want him to return, not for anything more than the amount of hatred that people have towards him, and we're happy to see him die.
Yeah.
So him coming back, I think will just be hilarious. Hilarious. Wow.
Hilarious.
Words are hard.
Use your big boy voice.
Nah. Maybe another day.
A day. So like you ask somebody a day in Shadowlands this next. You can't ask. Like this doesn't interest me because a
I
day in
skipped that.
Shadowlands. Huh? Yeah,
I
a day
skipped
in
that.
Shadowlands for like an average player. What do you consider average anymore? You know what I mean? Like it's so personal what your day in Shadowlands would look like.
Yeah.
You know. So
Yeah, I skipped that one. I didn't particularly give a rip for that because it's like you said, everybody's going to be different depending on what content you're after, what your experience you're after. Like,
my first day in Shadowlands is going to be leveling. My second day in Shadowlands is going to be, if I'm leveled, is going to be trying to find people to run mythics. I mean,
yep.
like that's my route around what's going on. Like, yes, of course I'm going to do my dailies. Of course I'm going to do my covenant stuff. Of course I'm going to finish the storyline. But as soon as I'm done with the storyline and my dailies are done, I'm mythic bound the rest of the day.
Yep.
Like that's how I play the game.
Shadowlands delays and working from home.
I mean,
it was a good response. It felt kind of, political, right? They said they liked the patch cadence during BFA, excluding the 10-month long 8.3.
okay, I was just gonna say, let's talk about where we're at right now. Like,
I think that comes down to, they talk about, certain things worked better working from home, but then you lost things working from home. So
right.
reading this actually gave me the feeling that Shadowlands was probably supposed to be earlier than it was originally announced to be, and then ended up getting delayed as they transitioned. And it, as someone, my work, I moved remote, but like 80% of my company was remote that I supported for, IT things. But going from a office where it was all on site to where 80% of my stuff was remote was definitely a big change for me, and how you communicate with people, how you talk to people, all this stuff. So I can see that. It is what it is. It was a bit of a, they knew this question was going to come up. He had something prepared of, they knew how to answer this kind of question. And same with the communication. They talk about how happy are you with communication overall, and it's one of those, it's the same response we've gotten every time.
He was like, where's that teleprompter?
Yeah,
I gotta figure out what I'm supposed to say here.
Do they do a good job? Sometimes, yes. Other times it's shit. Yeah.
So his comments about, being transparent and stuff, I think that they're okay, but just like from when they delayed Shadowlands till when they re-announced it, there was such confusion in there because nobody knew, like, are we gonna get it before the end of the year? Are we gonna get the raid before the end of the year? Are we even gonna see content before the end of the year? There was nothing for weeks. Like, you could have at least came out and been like, hey, we're still working on it. It's getting really close. We might be able to have something ready by next week to let you guys know when it's coming out. Like, even something like that, the community would have been like, hey,
well,
thanks.
That's been the complaint from a lot of the community over the years, is you have these moments where you get great feedback sometimes, and it's sometimes it's even only specific to classes or situations. In other classes, like, I know the monk forums were up in arms because they were in a shit spot with broken spells, broken things you knew were going to change, but they had no comments for months about it. And it's one of those, like, they need something. And I think that's where Blizzard falls short in communication, is they have really good comments or nothing. Like, there's no in between. There's no trying to give some form of hope that things are even being looked at. Like you'll get,
Right.
because I was big on Monk early in the expansion and following things, and you look on the Monk forums and Reddit posts, and people are detailing out massive posts of issues and numbers and like putting huge amounts of time into outlining the issues with the Monk
Yeah.
specs and nothing. And it's like, can you just say that you've seen this? Like, and that's what people were upset about. Like, it's like, okay, the
You just let
community's,
me. You're there. Like,
yeah, doing all this work, and they say in here and I believe that they're reading it all.
right.
There's no chance they're not at this point. Like, it's, you see the blue posts on Reddit, or the developer posts, you see the blue posts on the forums, like they're reading it. They just do a terrible job sometimes at actually letting you know that they're reading it or looking
That
into
they've
it.
seen it. Like,
Yeah.
even if they were just like, yeah, let me look into that for you or something. Just something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Delete your WTF folder. Like, give me something, Blizzard. Come on.
So, yeah. I don't know. Overall, I think it was a good interview. I
Yeah.
think things were answered. I think it cleared up some things.
I agree.
Still a little worried about the tuning situation, the balance. That's still,
I think we're gonna have that to worry about for a little bit, even after release.
oh yeah.
It's just.
I mean, I know, like on the competitive WoW forum or subreddit, before they announced the fact that you can't get your legendary week 1, basically everyone was planning on holding their legendary until they geared up a bit.
Right.
Whereas, a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to grind and make my legendary as quick as possible. They were going to hold to make the best legendary they could and wait to see what gear drops for them, and kind of wait till they hit a wall to make their legendary.
Right.
Because, you don't know what the tuning's going to do. We know that's been the huge problem with, you've got conduits, you've got why can't I think of it? The power for each covenant. You've got your legendaries, you've got your class. I forget what I saw the number for the amount of things that have to be tuned.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're in the tens of thousands, I think.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous to assume that that's all going to be spot on. And especially when you go from beta, which is a known small percentage. And I think even somewhere in here, he admitted, mythic raid testing, a lot of the people that get invited to mythic guilds, they're not trying to kill the boss. They're there taking notes, learning the mechanics, making weak auras. Like they're not focused on getting the boss down during that testing. They're focused on benefiting themselves in a way
In
that
the long run.
they wouldn't do during the mythic race.
Right.
So I think once you go live, there's just so much more data that you're gonna find the holes, and it's guaranteed with this many systems right out the gate. We're gonna get tuning. Yep. You're gonna get tuning before heroic. You're gonna get tuning before mythic, and you're probably gonna get tuning during both to some degree. It's just how big is that tuning is the question. That's the unknown.
So this time next week, we're gonna be Shadowlands.
Yep. Next podcast, we'll talk about the thoughts and opinions of what actually is.
Yeah, dude, I'm pumped, bro. Pumped. Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Yep.
And then what? The week after, maybe raid.
I think maybe. That's right. Yeah, it opens up the week after.
Well,
normal and heroic.
For us, it's still maybe next week. Like for us, it's still maybe.
Yeah, we'll see
2 weeks. I would love to jump in night 1 of raid. Like I would love to, and I don't see that as a impossibility.
I think there's 10 of us that will be ready for
right. And I think I honestly believe that we should just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Get our feet wet, see what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, then the next week when everybody's ready, it's like, hey, we know what's going on. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We know what's up. So that's a whole nother conversation though. But yeah, dude, I'm so excited. So excited. Yeah.
You and every other WoW player.
Yes, indeed. So I think that pretty much wraps up this episode.
I do think so.
Unless you have something else to put in.
Nope.
Giggity? Okay.
Giggity.
All right, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we will come back out next week with our thoughts on Shadowlands and what we've seen so far. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.